Where's that then? Oh. Do 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 683. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the weekly meeting of Gamblers Anonymous. Of course not. Informed speculation. That's what we do. If you haven't watched these before, I run them every Friday at 2:30 as the US market opens. Although I think next week the Americans go to daylight saving time or not, or American summertime, whatever it's called. So perhaps the market will have already been open. The times will change, but I will still be here at 2:30 UK time next week. The way this works is we'll take a look at some of the major announcements coming out next week. Then we'll jump onto the charts, take a look at what's going on with the major markets, indices, currencies, gold, oil, Bitcoin, a little bit of everything, see what looks interesting and see where the opportunities might be. Funny old week, I thought. It's been an okay week for me. I'll talk about some of my trades as we go through. But you know, this is where we were last Friday. This is the S&P, and it's just been a bit drifterama all this week, isn't it? And then yesterday, bit of a surge and back up near the all-time highs. So interesting end to the week. Might be an interesting session today. I think the Nasdaq has pushed to a fresh all-time high in the overnight session. So let's see what happens in the real session. I've still got loads of US equity trades on. We'll talk about those. I think I've got about 40 running at the moment. So we'll talk a bit about that. But before we talk anymore, let's just get some of the housekeeping stuff done. And as usual, if there's any markets you want looking at, if you put them in the chat on YouTube, then I'll take a look at them when we've looked at all the other stuff. Okay? Let's just do a quick risk warning. This presentation is only for educational purposes. It does not contain and should not be construed as containing investment advice or an investment recommendation or an offer of or solicitation for a transaction in any financial instrument. David Jones accepts no responsibility for any use that may be made of these comments and for any consequences that result. You should consider whether you understand how spread bets, CFDs, futures, foreign exchange work, and whether you can afford to take the high risk of losing your money. Trading is risky. Okay, that's that. So next week, what have we got? We've got quite a bit going on next week. We've got Japanese inflation data late on Monday my time anyway, here in the UK. Wednesday, we've got the Fed chairman of the US Federal Reserve, the US Central Bank, is speaking. That could be a fair bit of volatility. I put ECB rate on Wednesday. I think it's Wednesday, and I think it is the rate decision. Is it not normally a Thursday? I'm wondering if I'd confused myself there. Anyway, I think there's an ECB rate decision next week. But the big one is Friday, and that is non-farm payrolls. So the US unemployment numbers announced an hour before the US market opens, whatever time that is when they've done their savings time stuff. So we'll see. So that's the big one next Friday. So we'll be doing the live stream after those, and normally plenty of volatility off the back of those. They went through a period, I think last year, it wasn't that important when the focus was very much on inflation. Focus is still on inflation, obviously, but I think the payrolls are back to having quite a big impact on markets again. So that's next Friday. So we'll see how that goes. A quick word from me. The sponsor, I've started working with a new broker this year, Trade Nation. If you go to bit.ly/David Trade, you can open an account with them. And I'm doing webinars and stuff with those guys for people who open an account through me. The link is in the description down below. I run a trading course. I've run a trading course for a number of years now. Part of the trading course was a WhatsApp group. It was just for people who'd been on the trading course. I've opened it up in the last 8 months or so to anybody. So you can join the WhatsApp group. And in the WhatsApp group, you get daily updates from me, markets I'm watching, trades I'm running, trades I'm doing, Q&A, always lots of questions backwards and forwards. I think there's about 50 people, 40, 50 people in the WhatsApp group. So if you'd like to try it, it's access to me on a daily basis from like 11 o'clock in the morning when I get out of bed till 9 o'clock in the evening when I switch everything off. If you want to sign up and try it, if you go to my website and use the code YouTube, then you'll get 20% off the first month. So if you go to the website, davidjonestrading.co.uk, link in the description, obviously, and then go to subscribe, which is just here. You can join the WhatsApp group in there and use the code YouTube. And you can look at the courses I run are all in there as well. The performance, some of the numbers. I'm always very open and public about my trading. We'll look at some of the numbers for the US stock trades in a minute. You can read all about that in there on the website and join up. And finally, on the homepage, you can join up for the free weekly newsletter that gets sent out every weekend. I've been very good, and I'd sent it out for the last 5 weekends on the trot, but didn't send it out last weekend. I just ran out of momentum. But I will send out an update this weekend on stuff. So if you're not on the newsletter, if you go to the homepage, you can sign up for that. But to try the WhatsApp group, use the code YouTube. It seems to be going well. I enjoy doing it. People seem happy, so give it a go. That's a snapshot of what it typically looks like. I can't remember what I was talking about today. I think it's been... what was I looking at today that might have been interesting? Oil has been an interesting one. We'll take a look at it in a bit more detail. But I think heating oil has been interesting. Gold is quite interesting. We'll have a look at that in a bit more detail. And I talk about levels and trades I'm thinking about doing and all that stuff. Okay, so that's all on the website, davidjonestrading.co.uk. Right, let's see what's going on, shall we? So for stock markets, it's a big focus for me this year, clearly because of the trends. I always trade the indices, the NASDAQ and the S&P. But I said, towards the end of last year, I wanted to trade more US stocks, which reminds me, where's Dell opening? I forgot I had this. Oh my word. I did this trade on Dell last year, and in the live stream last year, I don't know when it was probably around about October last year, and it sort of chugged away quite happily. Completely forgot about it, of course, and then Dell had knockout earnings last night, and here we are. They're up about, what's that, 30% today, Dell? Anyway, so that's the running position on Dell. If you've watched the live streams for a while, you remember that being placed last year, so that's quite handy. And Palantir is another running position from last year that I did. I don't know when I did it, down here somewhere. No, probably in here, December last year. So for me, US stocks are always interesting because of, the trends that we've seen. So a big focus for me this year has been US stocks. I'll talk a bit more about my US stock trades as we go on. But anyway, same old, isn't it? The trend is up. The trend is your friend. This is the S&P. The S&P is still going up. I want to buy the dips. I did do a day trade. It ended up being longer than a day trade, but I am long the S&P at the moment from earlier in the week because I thought it was going to turn around. It took a couple of days to turn around, but I'm still in that trade. But anyway, here we are. I'll still be a buyer of the dips. I think it will be interesting if we have a bit of a harder sell-off in these US stock markets, so we can see just how convinced all these bulls are. But it's for me, it's a bit copy and paste, isn't it? Because these markets keep going up. We haven't had this year. If we look at this year, we started the year off with a sell-off, a couple of days sell-off. We've had nothing really anywhere close to that. I suppose we've got to go back to the week. We just haven't had a half-decent sell-off. The markets chug higher. I'm buying the dips, buying the strength, buying the breakouts, blah, blah, blah. What can you do? The market's going up. So that's it. So S&P, still positive. For me, even if it got knocked back a couple of 100 points, back to 4,900, I'd still be a buyer of the dip of the S&P. And not a lot else to say apart from that. Same with the NASDAQ. We're here on the NASDAQ. We broke through the November 21 highs, broke through those end of last year. The market has continued to push higher. the trend is up, I'm a buyer of the dip, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's pretty straightforward, isn't it? You know, and I think it's interesting, you know, because it has been a relatively easy market to trade. I would never say anything's easy in trading, but it's definitely easier trading a market like this than trading something like the dollar index at the moment, although that has been trending higher, you know, but there are some markets, oil's a good example, you know, on the dailies, where it has been all a bit sideways, you know, so for me, I'd much rather trade a market that was trending, like the S&P, for example, or the NASDAQ, than try and force it in a market that's going sideways. So it's been a really good market for me this year. NASDAQ, there we go, same old, same old. So, you know, nothing really to say. You know, if the NASDAQ got knocked back 800 points, then for me, the trend is still up. So let's see what next week brings. You know, maybe the payrolls will be a catalyst for a bit of volatility this time next week. I don't know. We'll see what happens. German market, all-time highs. There we go. So this period, it's a really dull period, beginning of the year on the DAX from about third week of Jan for about almost a month, 3 weeks or so. And here we go, breaking out in the DAX. So again, stock markets going higher. I'd be a buyer of the dip on the DAX. I'd rather have a bigger dip. Well, we're not having a dip at the moment, are we? If we get a sell-off back to 17,000, if that actually happened, I think that looks interesting. But this market is in an uptrend as well, obviously. FTSE 100 doing its own thing as ever, the FTSE. Everything else is off to the races. FTSE doesn't care. FTSE is going to doggedly stay in its sideways range for the rest of the century. So, yeah, I mean, I don't really look at the FTSE. It's just a bit, it's a bit sideways. And I'd rather trade a market that was trending. And the FTSE is not trending up or down, it's trending sideways. Japan, the Nikkei, great moves in the Nikkei this year. I haven't traded that actually at all, but I mean, I know some people in the WhatsApp group have. Fantastic trend. You know, the Nikkei broke 34,000 the 10th of Jan, and here we are today at 40,000. So 6,000, what's that? Can't do the maths. 15%, 16, 17% move in the Nikkei this year. Big old move. So again, I'd rather buy the dip in the Nikkei, but will we get a dip? I don't know. But there you go. Great trends there. So yeah, stock markets off to the races. What else have we got to do? So that's stock markets. All good. Lots of strength. Let's take a look at the dollar index. I've traded this market a lot over the last 6 years. I've not traded it that much over the last few months because it has been a bit sideways. But saying all of that, you know, the trend has been up. I was thinking about, you know, trying to buy a dip this week. It's perhaps turned around a bit too quickly for me. I wondered if we'd get a deeper dip back to maybe the low 103s on the dollar index. We haven't had it yet. But I think it still looks positive to me, the dollar index. So I'd rather buy a bigger dip with a stop below the lows from the middle of January, around 102.70. But yeah, that's it. I mean, it's you know, it is an interesting market. It's as you can see, it's been a bit sort of drifty, a bit sideways during Feb for me. Let's see, does this run crack the old highs at 104.40? I don't know. Maybe I will get my opportunity to be a buyer on a bit of weakness. Let's see. There's that Fed statement, or the Fed chair, Mr. Powell, speaking next Wednesday. There's the payrolls on Friday. Maybe there's a bit of volatility there. So blah, blah, blah. Let's see what happens with that one. And of course, with the dollar being a bit non-directional, it of course has an impact on other markets. You know, if you look at pound against dollar, I've been long. I'm still long, I think, but I've got to stop at break even on this now. And again, I bought it 126 something, 126.05. So I might get stopped out this afternoon. So I bought it perhaps 2 weeks ago. It did run up 100 points. It's come back down again. And you can see again, pound against the dollar, a little bit sideways. That's going back to the 14th of December. So that's 2.5 months now of pretty sideways. So nothing too exciting in there. And you can see it on the daily chart. 125 is the support. So if it gets knocked back down next week, perhaps it's interesting from a short-term trade. But FX has been quite a non-eventful market for me in the last few months. So there you go on that. Euro, same on the euro. The trend on the euro against the dollar is up since September 22. I'd still be a buyer of the dip. It's had a little rally, but again, it's stalled. So it's just not very exciting for me at the moment. Like I say, I'd rather trade something that was moving. So that's that. Let's look at gold. Gold's had a move though. Gold has had, I've been quite surprised by this. Gold's had a half decent move over the last week and a half, 2 weeks. Where are we? I can't remember where we are. 2 weeks, isn't it? We're in March now. Yeah, bang, bang, bang. Nice move on gold from 1990 to 2000 and whatever it's done today, 2057. I did put this in the WhatsApp group today. It's interesting that gold, 2060, 2065 have been the highs for the year, pretty much. So is it going to crack this? I don't know. Again, on the dailies, it's a little bit boring for me. Gold, we've been pretty sideways since December on gold. Let's see what happens next week. But this again is all a function of this US dollar being a bit flat overall. So not the most interesting market for me at the moment. Silver, I think I'm going to say the same thing. Yeah, silver. I mean, if you absolutely had to be a buyer of silver, then 2 days ago was the time to buy it. We do have a lot of support down at 122. 122 at 22. $22 an ounce, wherever it is. I've just come out of my Dell trade. Did that really reverse then? Oh, I cranked the stop up, so I've taken profits on that. That was a good old trade then, wasn't it? £810 profit. See, it is worth me doing these live streams now and again. So silver, $22 has been a floor for silver. Again, it's not a market of much interest to me because it is all a bit sideways. But if you're a fan of silver, you can see going back to November of last year how 22 has been a floor. So let's see. I mean, I wouldn't trade it, but it's a perfectly sensible trade to do, I think, with the stop the other side of 22 if you quite fancy silver. So that's that really. That's the sort of FX and the precious metals. Not too exciting for me. This is interesting. I did trade oil. This is oil. I did trade oil the other week. I did okay. You can see, this is the daily chart we're looking at. $80 since the middle of November has been a problem. So December, January, February, 3.5 months. Oil has not been able to break through 80. And I've been saying in the WhatsApp group this week, I wonder if we'll see the break of 80. It's been quite interesting. It keeps trading its way up there, getting slammed, has another look, gets slammed, and here we are. We are probing through 80. So this could be interesting the next couple of weeks. Let's see what happens. Let's see, does oil finish above 80 today, which would be its highest since the beginning of November. So maybe we're seeing oil starting to break out. And if it starts breaking out through 80, then I would be looking for the autumn highs, 92 to 96 on oil. See what that looks like. So that could be an interesting market next week. Heating oil. I think heating oil is interesting. I did short heating oil the other week. Did okay. Came out too early, but did all right. I went short. Can't remember where I went short. It would have probably been here. I think a week last Monday. Came out of it here somewhere on Monday. It did slip a bit lower, but I think heating oil is interesting because we've got this trend on heating oil going back to May of last year. And you can, if you want to look at a short-term trend, it's here. So heating oil, if it's going to bounce from anywhere, this is where it is. It's here. So I think this is an interesting market to watch next week. From a more medium-term perspective. If I want to be a buyer of heating oil, we've come back to that trend. The trend from wherever it is, mid-December, or even back to the trend from May of 2023. So for me, absolutely, heating oil is in a recovery over the last few months. It's dropped back from 297 down to 260. So it's a 10% move. So I think it's an interesting one for next week. So for me, that could be a trade for next week. And if you're in the WhatsApp group, you'll find out exactly when I do it, give or take an hour or two. So that's that. And of course, the old favourite, natural gas. Hate natural gas. But here we are on natural gas. Traded as low as, where did it get to? 156, lowest in many years. Blah, blah, blah. It's had a little bit of a bounce. I don't trust the bounce in natural gas. So for me, if I had to do a trade on natural gas, I would probably be tempted to short it here with a stop above 2. But it is a market that absolutely does its own thing, it feels like, more than any other markets. So I don't trade it very often. But, arguably the trend is up, of course, since the 19th of Feb. If I was a buyer now, I'd have a stop below 165. But I'm tempted to think, we've had this big downtrend. Is this the end of the downtrend? Is it going to have another little go down? So for me, I never believe the first rally in a downtrend or the first sell-off in an uptrend. So yeah, I'm a little bit skeptical. It was a great trend all the way down. I'm really not sure. But, if I absolutely had to buy it now, I'd put a stop under at least 165. But what I would rather do is have a stop under the absolute low, which is 156 or something like that. So so I don't trade it. I did trade it a bit last year. The last trade I did, I got stopped out on. I think it was here, so I didn't touch it since. But that's natural gas. It's the crazy world of natural gas. So for me, heating oil and crude oil, perhaps the more interesting markets when it comes to the energies next week. Let's see what happens. And of course, Bitcoin. The hodlers are all doing incredibly well. So Bitcoin traded up to 64,000, which is what, 10% below the all-time highs. Bitcoin is on its way to 500,000, or maybe not. But if you watched the live stream at all last year, the trend had been up since November 22. It's absolutely accelerated since October last year. It's gone up like a maniac, isn't it? So, and here we are. So is it going to take out the all-time highs? I don't know. But the trend is up. I'd be a buyer of the dip. I don't actually trade Bitcoin. But, you can't deny that trend. So, even if we saw the price get knocked back to 40,000, where it was only about 6 weeks ago, it'd still be a buy for me. So, really interesting to see what happens with Bitcoin up here. And I wonder if we start breaking out through 70,000, do we get the FOMO that comes back in, the fear of missing out? Everyone wants a chunk of crypto again. I don't know. Let's see. But no, great trend in Bitcoin. And here we are. So for me, let's see, do we break the old highs? So that's that. Other interesting markets. What else is interesting? Cotton. I missed the trade in cotton. I was going to buy that last year, but I didn't. I was going to buy it in November because I thought it was interesting. It'd come back to the old lows from March 2023. And here we are. It's interesting. It's getting slammed today. I would buy the dip in cotton because it broke out through 92 and a half, ran up to 102. It's getting slammed a bit today. It's a breakout. I want to buy the dip. I want to see the market stop dipping though. So let's see what happens with that one. Cocoa, the crazy trend of cocoa. Look at that. If you take that out, amazing. So since September 22, cocoa's gone from 22, traded as high as 66, so it's tripled in about a year and a half. The price of cocoa has sold off, a very volatile market, has sold off and bang. Are we going to be off to the races next week on cocoa? Let's see what happens. So loads to watch. For me, my focus is still very much on stock markets. I'll show you all my trades. I'll talk a bit more about this approach in the newsletter this weekend. I've normalized the risk down to $200 a trade. So these are the trades I've done on US stocks since the 18th of December when I started. So about 39, 40 trades. So with a 200 quid risk per trade, the return on margin is 21%, which is pretty good, I think, in 2.5 months. So of course I've got to say past performance is no guarantee of future performance, all of that sort of stuff. It has been clearly a really good market for stocks because we've had this great trend. I do have some shorts in there. So on this 200 quid risk at the moment, the overall value is 67 grand, but 55 grand long, 11 grand short. So of course there's quite the imbalance. I do have some put options in there to balance off the risk, balance off a bit of the risk. But that's a snapshot of how all the individual stocks have done. I talked about it a bit in the WhatsApp group yesterday. I can't remember what I said. I think I said that 10 out of 39 trades were responsible for 84% of the profit, which is not unusual. What I'm trying to do is catch big trends, and some stuff is not going to do very much, and then other stuff like General Electric, a trade on the 8th of Jan, is up more than 2 times the risk. Boston Scientific is up equal to the risk, so there's a few big movers in there. General Dynamics has done well. What was the big mover this week? Axon. I put that trade on the 9th of Feb. That's done really well. Bought those at 270. Where are they today? 305. So again, I completely accept most of them will just chop around, but what I'm looking to do is to catch a few big movers on the way. So for me, if I show you the stock, what's moving today? Oh, Eli Lilly, I came out of those. I got stopped out of those for profit. They were a big winner. Copart, in those. Marathon Petroleum, bought those whenever. Can't remember, a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, so always an interesting mix. So for me, that's a big focus. And I do talk about my US stock trades when I do them in the WhatsApp group. It's done. And, in trading, let's not forget, most people lose money. I know I bang on about this. Most people lose money. If you've lost money trading US stocks this year, you absolutely need to have a look at your strategy. Because again, I wouldn't say it's been an easy market, but it's definitely been easier than a lot of other markets. And all I'm trying to do with this approach, I don't even care about the intraday movements. I do not look at short-term charts with this approach. All I care about is the daily charts, and it's half an hour's work a day for me. And it's, so far it's made 21% return based on margin. It's a very simple trend following approach. So yeah, long may it continue. I don't think it is going to continue for the rest of this year. It'd be great if it did. I think we are definitely overdue a bit more volatility and a bit more of a sell-off in US stocks. But let's see how it goes. So that's the stuff. We'll have a look at the stuff you want looking at now. But overall, the big focus for me is still stock markets because the trend is clear. I think heating oil and crude oil are interesting next week. Oil, crude, because there's this $80 mark. If you absolutely did not think the price of crude oil should be up here, this is the perfect place to go short. With stops above 80. Let's see what happens. Heating oil, because of the trend and everything else, particularly FX, is not very exciting for me at the moment. But of course, that will change as the year goes on and things get a bit more exciting in these different markets. But what we'll look at now is the stuff you want looking at. But like I say, if you want to try the WhatsApp group, use the code YouTube, go to the website, davidjonestrading.co.uk. It's never going to be free, I don't think. Well, you never say never. But, for me, most of the people on that have paid for a course. It's access to me during the day. I think there's a lot of value in it. But you can try it for a month and see what you think. Use the code YouTube and get 20% off. Link is in the description to the video. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, let's have a look at some of the stuff you weren't looking at. Hold on a second. Let me try and find the questions or the comments. And if there's anything else you're looking at, fire it in. Hi, David. Buying the dip. What would be the dip be for the S&P 500 for today's level of 5,100? Well, if you do my trading course, you find out all about that. But for me, if I was buying the dip, the absolute first thing I will consider is the low of the previous day. Yeah. So for me, what's the low yesterday on the S&P? 5062. So 5,062. So for me, if the market drifts down to that during today, I think about being a buyer. If the market breaks out, I need to come up with a different strategy. So if the market looks like it's going to just run away, then I need to come up with a different strategy. For me, I wouldn't trade it here. That's just me. Of course, we all have different ideas on where we can trade, but for me, I wouldn't trade it here because it's in the middle. So I want to see, I'd rather buy the dip. And if it blasts off, then I miss it, and so be it. So yeah, that's what I would be watching for a really short-term point of view today. From a daily point of view, the dip is further away. If we're looking at daily charts, obviously the dip's going to be further away. I'd rather have a half-decent sell-off. So let's see. But yeah, the first level I would consider would be those mid-50s, 60s. Is it a bad time to buy heating oil in the spring? I would say no. I would say, I don't care about that sort of stuff, because look at it in the summer. Heating oil, if we look at it, actually go back this time last year, heating oil started rallying from April into September. Now, the casual observer might think, well, why is the price of heating oil going up when the weather's warm? I don't know what the answer to that is. And you know what? I don't care either. I'm just going to trade what's going on in front of me. So yeah, I would not worry. Personally, I don't worry about stuff like that. If we look at, it went nuts obviously in March of 22 because of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, heating oil, and it was still high in June, and then it sold off for much of or the first however many months of 2023. So for me, no, I'm not too bothered about that, yeah, other people might have a different view. Ultimately, whatever makes money is the right approach, and for me, I just trade what's in front of me and what's going on the chart. Buy China and the Hong Kong index. Let's have a look at that. We've not done that for a while, have we? China 50. There we go. It's interesting, this China 50. I was quite bearish on this market, and I think it has turned around, the old China 50, because it did break to new lows for the down move in Jan of this year, and it's turned it around. So it's an interesting market. If you thought the bottom was in place, if I thought the bottom was in place, if I was a buyer now at 11,828 and looking for a bigger move, I'd still have my stop probably below those lows for the year at 10.6. So it is an interesting market. It has turned around and broken out this downtrend. Let's see what happens. Short Australia. Let's have a look at that, the old Aussie market. Is it the ASX? ASX Limited. What's the ASX 200, isn't it? That's the Aussie, isn't it? I would buy that as well, though. It's going up for me. The market is in an uptrend. It's been at this level. It's been a big level, hasn't it? This 7.6 on the Australian 200 has been an obstacle since August 2021, and it's just started breaking out. So let's see what happens. It's not. I mean, for me, the trends are still clearer in the US markets, so I want to trade the ones with the clearer trends. But that Aussie index is an interesting one. So let's see. CRW for earnings next week. Let's have a look at those. CrowdStrike. They did really well last year. I traded those a bit last year in the live streams, I think. God, they've been really volatile, haven't they? What was that all about then? Anyway, great trend in CrowdStrike. So since 2023, and they've gone from $95 to $340. That's nuts. Now, that is just in a year or so, isn't it? There we go. A lot of volatility there, isn't it? So what have they done? They've done in the last, just this month, traded as high as nearly 340, traded as low as 273. So that's 20% swing this month. And you're saying earnings next week. I know you love the earnings, Kev. There we go. Earnings on Tuesday, the 5th of March. So, yeah, I would, as usual, not going to surprise you, buy the dip if they dip after earnings. It'd be interesting to see what happens, because there's the other one, Snowflake, which I know is one you mentioned this week in a WhatsApp group. Got clobbered on earnings, didn't they, yesterday? But that, for me, is a really interesting buying opportunity. I wonder what happened with CrowdStrike. Let's see. So I would like to buy them. I'd like to buy them a bit lower. If I was a buyer today, then probably the absolute closest I would have my stop would be the other side of 270. I'd rather have it the other side of 240. Let's see what happens. But interesting to see what happens with that one on the earnings next week. So yeah, let's see what happens with that. And what was the other one? Wingstop, a chicken wing chain. All right, Wingstop. Oh, I could look at that. It's flying. There's the dad joke of the day. So where were they then? So they were June 22, $75, $355. It's trading like it's Nvidia, isn't it? Is that what it is then? It's just like a KFC. Hang on a second. Got to look these up now. Wingstop. What's so special about Wingstop? Yeah, a restaurant company. Order chicken wings online. Chicken wings from the wing experts. All right. Anyway, I mean, absolute cracking trend. As usual, the question for me, if I'm going to buy it, where's my stock going to go? They've had earnings this week. Interesting. Did they fall? They fell very briefly on earnings, and then they've rocketed again. Yeah. What would you do? Breaking out again today. For me, I would have my stop. The other side, the absolute closest I would do it would be the other side of $300, which is only where it was 2.5 weeks ago. So it's up nearly 20% in the last 2.5 weeks, isn't it? So for me, that would be the closest I have my stop. I'd rather buy a sell-off or the usual. But what an absolute cracker that has been, the old wing stop. Yeah, amazing. What's next? What's next? If you have to choose between trading with a specific system or discretion, which would you prefer? Very interesting question. A lot of what I do, I think, could be coded into a system. So a lot of my approach, I've got definite rules that I talk about in the trading course. I've got a very simple approach for medium-term trading. I've got 5 or 6 strategies for shorter-term trading, but it is very rule-based. So, so I suppose I trade a system with a bit of discretion over the top. So I don't know if there's obviously if you have a system, you buy a 52-week breakout with a 10% stop, for example, that's a system, and you can just have that running and there's no discretion. For me, I trade obviously what I suppose is a blend of the both. So I don't know, but yeah, I'm sure if I coded it, it would probably do better than I do. But perhaps I like to have that feeling of control. I don't know, but it would be interesting to run a completely automated system. And perhaps the best one is just having firm rules and just having a little bit of judgment over the top of it. I don't know. It depends, I suppose, how disciplined you are when it comes to trading. I'm really disciplined when it comes to trading, 95% of the time. Learnt through losing money for many years. So for me, it is a system, but with a sprinkling of discretion over the top. I'm not one of these people who just turns up and has a gut feel approach to markets. So I'm absolutely not just random discretionary, but have the rules underneath. Rolls-Royce. What are they? Is it Rolls-Royce or Rich Tech Robotics? Are you saying there? I'm going to guess you mean Rich Tech Robotics. Do you mean that one? That looks like an absolute crazy market to me. So if you meant Rolls-Royce, if you type in Rolls-Royce. NWG, NatWest Group. Is it NatWest Group? What's the London listing? We did this last week, didn't we? I completely forgot what it is. NatWest Group. There we go. So there's the London from NatWest. That does. I would have been bearish, I reckon, when we look at that last time round. I think, wouldn't I? But is it reversing the downtrend? Maybe. I'd need a bit more confirmation, personally. I would still be tempted to go short, I would still be tempted to give the downtrend one last go and go short with a stop above 265. So that's NatWest Group. But I never look at UK stocks. But it's interesting. It's a tricky one, that. It's always tricky for me when it's breaking a big level, the September highs at 243. But is it going to be a false break? I don't know. So I'm a bit on the fence with that. I'd probably go short, though, if we had to do anything. Bitcoin halving, yeah, I don't understand any of that nonsense. I think in the past, the halving has been a bit of a non-event, hasn't it? So, no, I don't know. I don't have an opinion on that. Don't know anything about it. And Alphabet. I'm in Alphabet at the moment. It's one of my worst performers at the moment. Where has it gone? Where's my little spreadsheet gone? So I've been in those since... oh, God, I can't find them. I know it's probably staring me right in the face. So there it is, 6th of Feb. So I bought those on the 6th of Feb. Losing money on those at the moment. I would buy it. I mean, I'm in the trade, obviously. It was in too early, so I bought in back here. The trend is still up for me on those. So for me, if I was a buyer of Alphabet today, and I would be a buyer, I would put my stop the other side of 129. So, we've had this uptrend since March 23, bang, bang, bang. So we're a year into this uptrend. The thing has hit very briefly all-time highs, Google, Alphabet, wherever they are. It's come off, and for me, the trend is still up. So for me, I would still be a buyer with a stop at, I don't know, 125 or something. So it's interesting. So hopefully that does come back for my my existing trade as well. So we'll see. We'll see how that one does. Oh, good. A Rolls Royce. Thanks for that, Connor. Rolls Royce Holdings. There we go. They've been doing really well, haven't they? Oh my God, that's nuts, isn't it? Rolls Royce. How come they're doing so well? Because it's Rolls Royce engines, of course. It's not Rolls Royce cars. Rolls Royce cars is owned by BMW, isn't it? So this is Rolls Royce, the engine, aerospace engines and all that. Doodah. What a run they've had. Amazing. So a year ago, they were 94p, and here they are at 375. Wow. As the usual, problem for me with a runaway stock like this, where does my stop go? I mean, they're nearly back up. What's that high there? 2018 high, so 5.5-year highs, isn't it? Cracking run. Who'd have thought? I mean, I would never have imagined they'd have that sort of performance. I'd be a buyer. Where would I buy? I don't know. I'd rather buy a dip. Where's my stop going to go? Probably the absolute closest is 325, the gap before the earnings, and that was only just over a week ago. So what a phenomenal performance from Rolls-Royce. So yeah, I'd be a buyer of the dip. Maybe we get a bit of nerves up here because we're back up near these old highs, almost 10-year highs as well, going back to March 2014. So maybe we do get a bit of profit taking, bit of a dip, all of that, doodah, maybe up here, but absolute cracking trend. So yeah, wow. Right, Sterling Infrastructure Inc. Oh, so another one that's gone nuts, isn't it? What do they do? Engineering and construction. It's interesting though, this for me, just to go off on a tangent for a bit, this for me is why, trend following is the way to trade, because you get surprises, and clearly this lot have had a positive surprise off their earnings, but surprises are more often than not in the direction of the trends. Yeah. So I would have been, if I'd have been looking at it back here, I'd have been a buyer anyway at 42 a year ago, and here we are at 110. I mean, it's gone absolute gangbusters off the earnings. And as usual, the question is, where does the stop go? Well, I think $90 would be interesting to me because it was the previous highs from late December. It was a high just before earnings. So if I absolutely had to buy them today at 110, I would be stopped the other side of it at least 89 is what I would be. As usual, I'd rather buy a dip. The risk is I wait for the dip, and the dip never comes, and it carries on blasting up without me. So yeah, I've just seen my US stocks have hit all-time highs since I've been in them, so that's good. So yeah, that's an interesting one, Sterling Infrastructure. But trend is up. I buy the dip. Do I wait? Who knows? If I had to buy it today, I put the stop below 89. See, Amazon's had a bit of a move today for me. This was the first one I did, 18th of December. Is that all-time highs on Amazon? Oh no, not quite. But yeah, so that's a good performer for me today, Amazon. But again, I bought those 18th of December, so in here somewhere. There we go. When they broke out through that level, whatever that level was, they went against me for a bit, and blah blah. Here we are. Have they had earnings? They've had earnings. Okay. So that's that. That's that. What else? BlackRock, the financial doodah company, if I could spell it. I was looking forward to 3:30 today when this finishes. I was going to go and give my car a wash because it was sunny. It's the first sunny day in what feels like weeks, and now it's raining. BlackRock Inc. So look at those. What would you do with those? They're a bit. What would you? There's an argument I think to go long or short. I think so. The argument for going long, they have broken out through these old highs, haven't they? From November 2022, they've broken out, but they haven't really got a move on. So if I was a buyer of BlackRock, I want to stop at least the other side of 765, probably the other side of 740. You could also say, well, all right, they've broken out, but they've not done anything since they broke out. And look what the market's done this year. So BlackRock is not following the market higher. So maybe it's a short. If I was going short up here, I'd have a stop. It's a Dutch stop. I'd have a stop above 825 if I was going short. So for me, it's a little bit hangy around, isn't it? So it's not one that jumps out for me, really. What's this S&P doing? Is it going to all-time highs again? Nearly. Okay, nearly. So yeah, BlackRock, I'd be a bit on the fence with that one, to be honest. And wheat, here we go. I am still short. I've been short wheat since July, I think. And it's I always forget I'm in the trade. A bit like the Dell trade. So it is in profit, but I got very excited in September when it started breaking lower, and then it hasn't. So I am short wheat. Been short for 8 months now. Let's see what happens next week. You know, if it breaks 520, then it starts to look a bit interesting. But it's done not very much since October. I suppose, you know, this is another one. I think there are two ways to go here, as there often is in markets. Nothing is that clear cut. You know, if you're a buyer, if I was a buyer now, if I thought that the trend in wheat had ended, this big downtrend we've been in, since again the Ukraine invasion highs, if I was a buyer now, then stops perhaps the other side of 520. I'm sure if it breaks 520 next week, I don't know. I would still be leaning short. I mean, obviously I am because I'm short. But yeah, let's see what happens. But that 520 level is the key one, I think. So let's see what happens next week. And just have a quick look at all my little stocks. Okay, so yeah, that's it. And that's it. If there's no more questions, we're pretty much done, I think. So for me, you know, a big focus is still US stocks and stock market indices. And I've done some day trading on the indices as well because we have had such big trends. Interesting moves today. This NASDAQ is moving out. Here we go. Fresh all-time highs on the NASDAQ 100. So yeah, that's all pretty bullish, isn't it? S&P isn't quite there yet. Got the highs from the February 24th to break. What's Nvidia doing? We've not looked at Nvidia lately, or today. Nvidia is sort of hanging around since its earnings. Okay, let's see what happens there. Tesla, what's his face? Old Elon. They've announced the Tesla Roadster this week. Oh, he said no. It's been coming for ages, isn't it? The Tesla Roadster. And I remember looking. Oh God, it must be like 2018 when he talked about it. And he's saying now, what's he saying? Tesla aims to ship it. Is it this year? With a sub 1 second 0 to 60 time. Now I can't quite believe that, but let's see. I mean, that would just be rip your face off. So interesting to see what happens. I think they were talking it's going to be £200,000 when they launched it in 2018. Let's see what it ends up being. Stock price hasn't done much, has it? I am long Tesla. I think we did a little trade on Tesla the other week. So that's doing okay. The Tesla trade we did in a live stream. But nothing too exciting going on there. So that's it, really. If there's no more questions, I think we're pretty much done, aren't we? So lots to watch next week for me. Stock markets, obviously. But oil, does it break 80 and get to the highest it's been since early November? Let's see. Heating oil is interesting because of the bounce off the trend line. There we go. It's an interesting market for me. Cocoa has gone absolutely ballistic. Does that resume next week? So yeah, so that's it. So as usual, we'll do it all again next Friday when these payrolls are out. 2:30 UK time. Don't know what time that'll be in the US because their clocks are changing. Any questions? You can always drop me an email. You can go to the website and send me a message, davidjonestrading.co.uk, or you can email me, dj@davidjonestrading.co.uk. Try the WhatsApp group. It's well worth it. Less than the price of a cup of coffee per day, I think. Far too cheap. But otherwise, we're all done there. So we'll wrap things up. Good luck with your trading next week. Let's see where we are. And see you all again, hopefully, next Friday.